Hi, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties. My CEO and founder of Muscle Makes Music. We produce music for the fitness industry for both in-person and virtual classes. So I am here today. I just invited Adita Lang to the group. She should be coming on here any moment. And we have been having some problems, but we will, Facebook sometimes gets overly busy. And I think that's part of the reason why we can't go live right now. But, back in 2020, I started something called Matcha Tea Time, where I came out onto Facebook almost every day because we were shut down. All the gyms were shut down. Instructors were not teaching. And let's see, I think she's coming. Yeah, so instructors were not teaching because they couldn't because the gyms were shut down. Hi, Adita. Stand
Hello.
by. And I was interviewing subject matter experts at that time, and it seemed to go, we decided to call it Matcha Tea Time because I drink matcha. And now here I am bringing it back, 5 years later, 4 years later, because we've had a lot of requests. People saying, I really like when you used to go live on Facebook. It was really informative. And over the last 5 weeks, we are in the middle of a 5-week webinar series called Behind the Screen, Tips for Teaching Virtual Fitness. And this is the 5th and final one. And I'm really happy now. Thank you, Adita, for joining us. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Adita Lang is, other than a good friend. She is a leading holistic lifestyle coach, author, and I'm reading right off the bio, and corporate wellness speaker for over 40 years in fitness and health. For the past 8 years, she's already been an OG in the virtual wellness space. She's been offering expert virtual training for professionals to deliver polished, engaging presentations and fitness classes in the virtual world way before COVID. So welcome, Adita.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
I know, this is so great. Adita, tell us about, and of course I know you because we're friends. Tell them, how did you get started with the idea of doing virtual? If you, how did that occur to you? Did you even call it virtual? Probably not.
I don't think I called it virtual. I had been doing, they were, webinars, right? And I had been working for a couple of insurance companies. And most of the time I would go in person, and occasionally they'd ask me to do something virtual. And so I would do it virtual, and I would do the best I could. I mean, I was just like, okay, let's put the camera on and let's just do this thing. No lighting, no nothing, had no idea really what I was doing. But at the same time, as I'm doing this, I'm kind of like noticing other people, and I'm going, they look a little strange when they're like this close to the camera.
Like I just was a minute ago.
And so then I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. Let me try to back myself up. And so there was just these little tweaks that I was making. And then, of course, COVID hit. Now, when COVID hit, I went 24/7 virtual. I cleared out my living room. I shoved all the furniture in front of the front door so I could have a space. And then I literally would put the camera on, and I'd look at the space and say, okay, is this right? And how does it look, right? Because a couple of things, again, and a lot of it came from me watching other people, and I would notice the things that would make me distracted by presentations I was doing. So then I would start tweaking here, bought all these different lights, bought all these different microphones, played with all of them, trying to figure it all out. And, now I pretty much have my kit of how I run things. But it still is interesting to me. I have some friends of mine, we had put together a certification for virtual presenters, and we were doing beta testing. And it was really enlightening to see the number of people who are doing virtual, and then they are just doing some bizarre things, and you're like, but I can't see, or there's distraction, or there's, what is that noise in the background? All these little things that come up. So I just use all of that as my learning lessons.
No, I think it's great. And I think also virtual for you seemed to work right off the bat because it lends itself to your lifestyle.
Yes.
Because you're a single mom of 2 kids, at the time 2 kids in the house, and right? So
absolutely.
You kind of liked it. You embraced it because you thought, oh, okay, can't beat them, join them, so going in person. Do you know why the corporations that you went to, why they asked for you to do virtual? Was it because, yeah, was it because you were out of state or something?
So,
Just
so
curious.
here's a couple of things to kind of keep in mind. First off, a lot of the businesses that I was working with, they have offices all over the place. They have offices in South America and LA and New York and here and there and the other. So what they were doing is corporations have what's called a wellness fund. And the insurance company gives them a certain amount of money depending on how many people are signed up with their insurance. And that money is for wellness activities. That's where I fall in, right?
Gotcha.
So they could either hire 4 different people for 4 different locations, or they could just hire me and we pick a time that works for LA and New York and Argentina all at the same time. And so it ended up being more viable to them to do that. And I do everything. I teach classes, I do meditations, I'll lecture on heart disease or obesity. So, you know, whatever they really need, I'll put that together virtually.
That's great. That's great. All right. And you've learned so much, you know, and I can't wait. And you are aware, we kept you last by design because we heard a lot from the 4 other wonderful, wonderful virtual instructors. So much great feedback. If you haven't had a chance to watch them, we'll put the link in there below of the YouTube where you can go watch them. But it's been a really great series. It's been very enlightening for me, quite frankly. I've learned so much. So why don't we start out by talking about, I'll kickstart it, and if there's anything else you want to add in, please do. And there's some things that are just kind of basics that I think we take for granted, you know, seasoned instructors who've been doing it a long time. But let's start out with overall appearance. I know that's been something, I know that every time I see you online, you're always looking really good. Everything looks great in the background. You don't have, you know, I don't know, cats walking in front of the screen, although maybe you do.
Well, let's try this. Let's try this,
Okay.
especially because, you know, originally you and I were going to be on the computer, but now I'm a little bit more mobile with the phone.
Oh, great.
So let's talk about this. So sometimes people will. So if you notice, when I moved over here, my face got dark because I have a window behind me.
Okay.
The amount of people that I have seen, and I'm opening the window. So even more, the amount of people that I've seen, and you think it looks pretty because you've got, you know, some pretty things, but now my face got dark. And I have to just say one thing. When our face gets darker, the wrinkles show up more. So we want light. We can't be going with this thing, right? Then at the same time too, I have, and I'm going to show you guys my kind of like the whole thing here. So I've got lights coming from all actions, and then this one's right in front of my face. A lot of people use a ring light. I tend to use just all these lights, right? And I have a light on the top too. But let's take this one step at a time. Let's say if I turned that light off and I turned off some of these, right? And so now I have 2 lights from my side, and I have me, and so now I've got just light shining on this side of my face.
I see that.
That's not very pretty either.
Okay.
You know.
I see
So that's why your lighting is really important, and you want your face to be lit up. And when your face is lit up, then all of a sudden your makeup looks better. The wrinkles don't show.
Right.
You know, we just look overall good. So then when I bring myself back to my little lit space here, you know. Now we're doing so much better, right?
So the light has to be facing you, right? But
the
not
light
in your eyes where you're blinded.
So here's the other thing. Let me see if I can do this correctly. Sorry, you're on the phone. I'm trying to do this so that you guys can see.
You're good.
So
You're good.
I have talked to people who, do you notice the shadow of my lights on my glasses?
Oh, right. I do see that.
But I mean, that's kind of distracting. I've seen people with the ring. You'll see the ring light in their glasses, right? So people, it's like they don't even notice it. So I set my light up. It's for my face, but I have to situate it in a way that's not going to, you know, show on my glasses.
Right. Wow. Interesting.
It's those little details. You know, I had done a beta test with a girl who's doing group exercise. She's teaching squats, but the way she has her camera, I can only see from her knees up. And I'm like, but your feet are important for squats. I want to know, where's your weight is it on your heels? Is it on your toes? Like, where is it?
Gotcha.
And she was like, oh, but I can't. And I'm like, no, you're going to have to move the camera. You have to move this back so that the whole body shows. You know, the same as somebody, I mean, if I'm teaching you here and I'm doing tricep kickbacks, well, you can't really see me. And I think that one of the things that's happened with the whole virtual thing is that we virtual presenters have become a master at what's called engagement. See, a lot of people are getting burned out on the virtual. They don't want to be in the virtual. So I really somehow need to engage you. So if I'm teaching an exercise class, but I don't turn sideways for you to see exactly what I'm doing or get close so that you can see the muscles I'm working and my form and technique, then I'm not engaging you anymore. I'm just performing.
You're just performing. And it goes back to really what we used to say with in-person classes too. You used to always just say, are you teaching or are you performing? Because if you're teaching, you have to think of what these different people in the class need, right? You just experienced that the other day, or was it this morning? We were teaching both. Now that's challenging. You were teaching an in-person class and a virtual class at the same time, because that's what your studio requires. So there's challenges with that. All right, so let's see. So we have lighting. We have the issue about the glasses. I love that.
Well, you know,
what else?
We have background as well. So I tend to like my little background here. I'm going to show you guys more background. I mean, so when I teach classes, I can actually darken up that window, and this is your background here, right? When I teach classes, but then other time for seminars and stuff, this is the background. I like art, and you notice that that's very colorful. There's a lot going on in that art. So guess what? I can't wear too much distraction on my clothes.
That's right.
Because if I do, or leggings or anything like that, that has all sorts of listen, I love color, just get real. But I have to be very careful on what I choose, because right now, if I had a multicolored shirt on, there'd be a lot going on.
Be too busy.
Sorry, I'm trying to anchor the phone so that I keep myself centered and you guys get to enjoy this.
No, it's great.
This is part of what we're doing.
So how do you recommend somebody, let's say, just starting out? Do they find a spot in the garage? I mean, how did you decide what you were going to clear to make this happen for you?
Yeah, this is, virtual has become, I've got to say, my full-time job. So it is my dining room. There's no dining room table here. This is where supposedly my dining room is supposed to be. And I've made it a studio. And I've actually helped several other peers create their own studio as well. And the interesting thing is that everybody gets very, I don't know how to say this. Here's a prime example. I had a client who, when the whole virtual thing set up, she had it all in her bedroom. And I said, no, what are you doing with that in your bedroom? I'm like, put your office in the dining room. And she's like, I can't, that's the dining room. And I'm like, wait a minute. You have no kids. You're by yourself in this house. I go, when do you eat dinner in the dining room? And she's like, oh, I invite my family once a year. And I'm like, well, fine. Once a year, you'll clean it up. But for now, turn it into your office, because we get very fixated with our house and we go, oh, this is the dining room section. This is the that section. And sometimes you just have to say, you know what? I don't use that section anyways.
At all,
right? So let me just make it into my studio, because it's a lot easier to set yourself up, I think, for lighting, for everything, when you can leave it there. If you have to take it on and off and on and off, then your lighting's not going to be right each time. Maybe you're not going to connect the cable the way you're supposed to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
There's just different things.
So leaving it there is really key. So lighting, leaving it there, glass reflection, but leaving it there is huge. And I wondered, do you guys leave it there? I mean, I guess the answer is yes, because otherwise you got to reset that up.
I know a lot of people that reset. And honestly, if you're going to reset, my suggestion is you tape the floor so you know exactly where your lights go. You just put a little circle on the floor, not too much, not that much distraction, but that you know where your lights sit and where your stuff goes. Because, and then maybe even create am I boring you?
No, I'm sorry.
And even create a checklist, right? So that you can go down the checklist, because there's so much, right now, what Denise said, I have started teaching at a club that we do hybrid. We do in-person and virtual at the same time. She has a checklist. And I can't tell you how important that is. I've only taught there 3 times. That checklist has been a godsend, because it's there's too much to kind of think about what you've got to get done. So I'm all about the checklist too.
Well, but even with a world famous, artist, musician at a concert, they always do a sound check, because you are going into a new space on a new night with new everything, or even if it's every night they do a sound check, you've got to make sure everything is working. I mean, we just had to do one to make sure this was working.
Well, and here's something kind of going back to the whole sound thing. Right now, yes, we kind of rigged this so that this would work for our live session. And so
Sure.
this isn't my normal setup, wearing a headset and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I have 3 different mics. I have a special mic for teaching class, a special mic when I present at my
right.
desk.
So
I want you guys to also think that it's actually real, especially with Zoom, because you can record yourselves. So if you're new to this, I would recommend recording yourself and listen to how you sound, how you look, what's in the background, right? Because if you have that tinniness in the background, that's really annoying when someone's listening to, a lecture or a seminar or
what do you
even a
mean
class.
by tinniness?
So a lot of times when presenters only use the mic of their computer, and maybe it's not a great mic in the computer, or maybe you bought a cheap mic on Amazon, to be honest, right? You listen to it, see how it sounds, because if it sounds tinny or echoey, then that's not really, you have to realize that the person listening to you, you want it to be a really good experience. And if they are frustrated on how something sounds, then that's not a good experience for them either.
Yes. I remember I took a webinar once that said, check everything. I mean, you don't have to, there's no such thing as perfection, but if you have a piece of lettuce in your teeth, what's going to happen is the person watching is going to be focusing on that instead of, right?
Yes.
We can't help ourselves. We're human. That's what we're going to look at.
And I think the other part, which goes right back to the focus, is on Facebook Live, and we're doing this for the phone, so it's really easy for you and I to look, our eyes to look like we're looking at each other and looking straight ahead. When you're on your computer on Zoom, like my laptop, the camera is up on top.
Right.
And what happens is naturally we want to look at the people in the eye. So we look at all the boxes or the person that's on there. So we're looking down, but the camera's up here. So you have to do something. I literally have like a giant piece of paper pointing to the camera because it it'll distract me. So I'll look at the camera straight on, because if not, I catch myself looking down. I'm looking at the person here. I'm looking at the person there. They don't know I'm looking at them. It makes me feel like I'm looking at them, but for everybody, they're going, where's she looking at? Why isn't she looking at us?
That must take time. It must take practice to just be, because like right now I'm talking to you and I'm looking at you, but I guess I have to look up at the camera, but then you disappear, which is weird, but I look better for the people watching.
Fantastic. Yes, of course.
So how did you, that must have taken some time to get used to that. What are you thinking in your head while you're doing that?
You know what? I'm trying to, and I tend to do this when I teach anyways. I try to place myself in the viewer's position. I really do.
Okay.
And so from that perspective, all my cameras, they have a little tiny green light. So I stare at the green light. I just really try to work at staring at the green light. And then when I notice that my eyes drift off, I go back to the green light and I go and I do it again. It's hard. It really is.
Yeah.
And like I said, on my laptop, I have like a piece of paper with like an arrow, like just so that I'm like always like, whoa, okay, let's look up there the way we should.
And I'm sure broadcasters have been doing this for years, weathermen, weatherwomen, and newscasters. I mean, that's what they do. And they do it so beautifully. We don't even realize it. But what else? What are the tips with the camera? Because, like, for example, me, I mean, do I look okay? I mean, I know when I interviewed Kelly, I was like right here. But I'm not used to certain, angles and stuff. But what do you suggest?
I think, and listen, right now in my mind, I'm doing a big mistake, because I would usually center myself in the paintings, and the paintings would be like perfectly straight. Like I'm kind of sitting crooked so I can hold you in place, right? Okay. But I like the artwork to be centered. I just don't want there to be any distraction. So, I really try to make sure that everything's centered. There's no other things in the way. There's no dog barking in the background. Those little things. I was, during one of the beta tests that I was doing, there was a girl and she had a beautiful home, and it was like a vaulted ceiling. And it was gorgeous. I mean, the decor was fabulous, but that was her background. And I was so paying attention to her background and the decor that I really wasn't paying attention to her.
So what would you have done?
It was too much. I would have moved her to one wall where you couldn't have seen everything. Like, she placed herself in the middle of this beautiful living room so I could see everything.
Right.
And so that's what I was looking at. I was looking at all that stuff.
Oh, wow. Now, what about the woman who was doing the squats? What kind of a recommendation would you have made to her to be able to see her whole body and her feet and everything?
So 2 things had to happen. A, she had way too much space on top of her head. Way too much space. So I wanted her to minimize that space. So we had to tilt the camera so we could get rid of some of this space, which then gave us space in the legs. And then we had to move the camera back just a few inches, to be
Oh,
honest. And then I got her in the camera.
nice. You got her in the shoot. Wow.
Yeah. And so, again, and if you're teaching classes, if you're teaching something that's like a lot of movement, I don't know, like a Zumba class, you want to make sure that you're in the camera. Now, they do have, which I just got, and I'm learning how to use it, they have cameras that'll follow you.
Yes,
And you do certain hand signals, and it'll zoom in or zoom out once you learn the hand signals. So I'm learning to play with that, because to me, when you do a movement type class, it would be so much nicer if the camera could just follow you and
For sure.
go where you want it to go.
For sure, yes, I've heard of that, and I've actually seen that. That's pretty cool. Otherwise, I guess you have to stay in that space at all
You have to
times,
stay in
right?
that space. And
or
I,
you have to see yourself, right?
Yeah, and I teach classes. I have my carpet is marked. I actually got a tape that's the same color as my carpet. So on camera, you don't see the tape, but if I glance down, I know exactly where the tape is. And I have my floor space tape so that I stay within my camera space. So if I'm doing a grapevine, I'm doing grapevine taking like teeny tiny steps like this, right? But oddly enough, you don't see that. When you're looking on camera, it looks like I'm just taking my grapevine, I'm doing my grapevine, which is great, right? But we have to do that again, so we stay in, and that the participant can really see what we're doing. Because, remember, you're not, I don't know about all of you guys, but when I taught class, typically my cueing was the normal cueing, but also the mistakes I would see people make that would give me some cues on my cueing, right? So I would cue that way. Now we're not seeing anything. A lot of times you don't see people. So I literally, in my mind, I just start thinking of all the, crazy things that I've seen out there, and I use that to cue under the sun. I cue and I cue, and I try to show and I cue, and I use my words and I show. Because some people listen, but some people need to see.
That's right. And some people need both.
Yep.
That is so true, because you're absolutely right. I remember when I used to teach, whatever you see going on that's wrong is a cue, like you said, to be able to cue. Interesting. Very, very cool. What else do you want to share?
Well, no, I mean, listen, I think that at the end of the day, some people are saying, oh, is virtual really here? Is it not here? Is it going to stay? Is it going to go? I think virtual is here. I think that you guys need to think about virtual being here. And here's what's happened to me, like virtual coaching, which I do a lot of. I was living in Miami for quite some time. I had snowbirds for clients. So that means my clients would leave during the, the summertime. They would go and I wouldn't train them, or they go on vacation and I would not train them. Now I train them wherever they are. I could be in Paris in the morning and New York in the afternoon, and I'm doing it from my living room. So I want you guys to think about that too. It's actually opened up a whole thing for us. And I even have clients that I train in person when they're local, and once they leave, we seamlessly go on to virtual. So I never lose them as a client, right?
It gives you freedom, and you never lose them as a client. That's awesome.
Absolutely. And at the same time, which we talked about at the very beginning, there's a huge need, all of you that are listening right now, there is a huge need for corporate wellness. Huge. And that's reaching out to HR directors and giving them a menu of the things that you do virtually. They would love to take you up on that. And the other part of virtual here too is that, it's not financially feasible to go into an office to do a 10-minute class. It's just not, right? But let me tell you what, but I can do that virtually without a problem, and I can do 10 of them, one after the other if I needed to, right? So all of a sudden you can offer some other things that maybe people don't want something that's 1 hour. Maybe they just want 20 minutes. Well, it makes it a lot easier to do that when you're doing something virtual.
Yeah, and it's a nice little break, right? You're working all day. You want to make sure you have time to eat too. You had to eat, right? So you're saying the 10 minutes, explain that part. The 10 minutes would be for what?
So I do stretch classes at a desk, which is the desk I'm using right now. And so I interrupt somebody's workday. They have me set up in different companies. And, let's just say at 2 o'clock for 15 minutes, I come in, or 10 minutes, I come in, they go online and we stretch at the desk. They're already at their desk. It
Oh,
gives them a good pick-me-up,
that's
right?
so nice. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. And I've had some clients too that I don't know, they came back from a run or something and they reach out to me and they go, "Hey, do you have any time?" And I'm like, "I got 10 minutes," and I'll stretch them virtually.
That's
10
great.
minutes right there,
So nice.
you know?
Yeah, wow, that's really great. I didn't think about that. You've given us some really good nuggets, like the
Yeah.
10 minutes, and
You
really,
have
really cool.
some versatility that you don't have in person.
That's
And
right.
so even if you're one of those instructors that are like, you know what, I'm not that much into the whole virtual thing, you know. But
Yeah,
here's the thing, this will open up some other doors for you. It doesn't mean you have to go all
sure.
virtual like I'm doing.
Yeah,
It just means that you could have this as an
yeah,
accessory. You know, think of it as a small appetizer that you can just implement into your day easily.
yeah. Or if you go on vacation, or if you travel with your family during the summer, you can continue to possibly
Yep.
at least do part of what it is you do.
Oh, I've trained clients being on
Have
vacation.
you really?
Hmm.
And do you bring all your equipment? And that opens up a whole nother list
Well,
of
that opens up
questions.
a
But
whole
yeah,
now
but
will
what do you bring? Yeah.
I don't teach classes usually on vacation, and I don't do lectures on vacation. I will coach a client here and there
Ah,
because I'm not going to bring all of
nah.
this.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
doing this. It's a
Okay.
lot to bring. But so, you know, I do have my limitations, but there are certain things that I will do.
So you
And
do coaching.
I do
Got it.
coaching. Now, if you wanted to go on vacation and you wanted to do a lecture, my suggestion is contact the local library of the place that you're going to, because the library
That's a great
usually
idea.
has soundproof rooms that are
Mm,
pretty lit up that
yep.
you could actually do something in there. I've done that in the past. Not my
Really?
favorite thing to do, but you know what? It solved the problem and it was great.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great
Mhm.
idea. Great suggestion. Wow, Adita, this has been great. Really, really informative. A lot of little nuggets that we'll have to write
Yeah.
down. I mean, I'm trying to remember them right now. So the library idea, if you're traveling, 10-minute stretch
Mhm.
at the desk, as a way to get some corporate work without having to go and drive to a corporation and show up just for a 10-minute stretch. That doesn't make any sense.
Or even to stretch a client for 10 minutes after they
Yeah,
did a run.
yeah.
You know,
I love that.
you don't have to have a 30-minute or a 60-minute session with your client. If they went out for a run and they tell you, you know
Mm.
what, I'll be back around 12. Can you give me a stretch? You'll be like, if you have nothing going on at 12, why not? Add that in there.
This
And you know, I want
is
to throw
so great. Yeah,
want to throw one other thing. And
please.
unfortunately, because we're doing it like this and not on the computer, it's harder to see. But if it's Zoom, if it's WebEx, if it's Teams, you have this thing that comes on, right? So if I turn off my camera, you would see my initials or something. You can
Oh,
actually
yeah.
create a graphic that goes there. So mine has my face and it has my social media contact and my email.
Oh,
So if
we can't
somebody's
see
sitting
that?
in the
I
screen,
love yours, but I guess
yeah,
we can't see
we
it.
can't see that
Wow.
on here. So if somebody's just sitting there waiting for the class to start or the presentation to start, they can check you out. They can figure out
Mm.
where you're at. I think it's really silly to really not use your own screen
And
card.
what do you
And
do?
that's what that's
So
called.
what do you put on there? What do you put on the screen card?
I think your face,
Hmm.
if you have a logo, your social media, how do you reach that person on social media, and your web address or email address, right?
Okay.
Don't put
Okay.
too much
Right, because it's going to be
because at the same
small.
time too, remember, yeah, the more you put on, the smaller the text has to be, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah.
want to keep it where your stuff shows, but then that way, I mean, and think of it this way too. I mean, I've
I
been
love
at
that.
a lecture where there's been 20 people in the lecture and I'm the only person with a screen card. Everybody else has initials. So think about it. You're waiting for this class to start or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I would definitely, just out of curiosity, I would be like, who is this person? She's got this social media. Let me look her up while I'm waiting,
Wow.
right? As
Wow.
opposed to somebody's initials. So, kind of put that out there
I
too.
like that. Hey, would you be able to do a screenshot of it and put it in this chat on Facebook later? Or send it to me and I'll
Or
put it
wait,
up
I
there?
think we can hold on a second. I have an idea.
Because that would be
I
really nice to see.
I have an idea.
Really
Let me
great
see.
ideas you have here. And while she's looking that up, I'm going to share with everybody that in September, Adita and I are going to be releasing a course for instructors or for anybody who wants to teach virtual fitness. And if you send your oh, here we go. Hold that thought. Look at that. That's beautiful.
So
I
that's what
love
people
that.
will stare at instead of like my initials.
Love that. Well done. I love that. That's great. Yeah, I just did a screenshot. No, I love that. I'm going to make one for myself. And you made that on Canva or
I made that on
right?
Canva.
Nice, nice. Any parting words before I talk about the certification and say goodbye?
Well, it's not necessarily certification, it's just a course.
Sorry, of course.
And so, you know, that course is going to be designed to help you choose your gear, figure out what you need, why you need the gear, help you figure out your location and all the other little things that you're going to need in order to really have a successful virtual presentation.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Any parting words? I want to also talk about one other thing. Anything else you want?
Words? No, I mean, you know, but through you, through Denise, you guys can get a hold of me if you have a question.
Please.
I'm here to help. Seriously, I really am here to help. I think we should all be successful from all this.
No, I think it's fantastic. And if you didn't know, Muscle Mix Music offers music, royalty-free music for all virtual classes. Email myself, hello, or email us at hello@musclemixmusic.com. And we're going to write down at the bottom when we hang up here how they can reach out to you if they have any questions.
Yes.
Or if they're interested in signing up early for the course that we're offering.
Yeah, we are going to offer 20% off.
We're going to offer 20% off
to be on the wait
list. To be on the wait list. Yeah, because we're going to get quite a few people looking for that. And that's going to be great. This was so great to have you, Adita. I apologize for the tech issues. I obviously have to work on that. But this has been so great. This series has taught me so much. And Adita's awesome. I'm going to be sending out the link to this. We're going to put it on YouTube as soon as we're done. And thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Adita, for coming. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.